Hey there, this is Math 21 in the AM. We're going to take a look at interest in particular, simple interest here. And the other day when you guys were working on this, I gave you guys a shortcut for these things because algebra ain't your jam. I've rearranged the formula for you. Is it algebra anyone's jam? Okay, so this is why we did it. I wrote these out and I'll put them on video for you. The main formula is I, interest, equals the principal, the rate, and the time. The rate has to be a percent, but as a decimal, divided by 100. Then, if you rearrange that and you want to find the principal is equal to the I, interest, divided by the rate at time. If you need to find the rate, it'll come out not quite as a percent. I have to multiply it by 100. It comes out as a decimal. But the rate is the I, interest, divided by the, where am I at? A rate. Yeah, principal and time. If you're trying to find the time that something was invested to make a certain amount of interest or whatever, it is the I, interest, divided by the principal and the rate. So those solve most of these problems. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Lock this down. I'm going to just do something like that. I don't need commas. Okay. Now, I did number 4, but we used algebra. We could have done a little easier now. I could have borrowed $5,003. Pardon me. I had to pay $1,350 for the simple interest at the end. What rate did she pay? I'm thinking I need to find a rate. I'm going to just drag this over here. I'll do it in green, the other way, the non-algebra way. Then I just toss in my numbers. The interest was $1,350. I can leave a dollar sign out. It's divided by 5,000. And the time was 3 years. Time has to be in years unless you're told something different. So the way you do that is figure out the bottom first. 5,000 times 3. 15,000. So I'm going to squeeze this in here because I don't have a lot of space. So 1350 divided by 15,000. What did you guys get when you had that? Oh, that's good. All right. You get decimal 2 7? I got it. Well, this is why we're going over it. Why don't you make some corrections while I update the 10? So I'll just count it. What is the answer you got? Hey, someone. Yeah. Big green machine, number 4. Hey, Liam, put the phone down. What did you get for 4, Liam? 9? You're getting 9. Oh, my son of a gun. You are getting 9. I put in the wrong thing here. Yep. 1350 divided divided by 50. You see what happens is when I tap numbers on this, it's not the perfect. Yeah, you get 909, which is 9%. Thank you. Which is times 100, 9%. Perfect. Which is great. Love it. Okay, now look at this one now. Same question, different numbers. What interest rate did Sam pay? So I'm going to use that same formula. Rate. I'm going to toss things into it. The rate is equal to what he borrowed for 2 years was the principal. So I'm going to put 4,500 on the bottom. 2 years for the time. And he paid 630 in simple interest. Which is equal to 3 times 4,500 is 9,000. So I can put that in a calculator. So do the bottom. Then I'll take a look and see if everything's out there. You guys get 7%? 0.07. Put the decimal down first. And then 0.007, nope. 0.07. 7%. Circle what I think is the right answer. Good old Sanjay. 6. He borrowed 7 grand. Simple interest, 3%. After a certain number of years, he paid 840 in interest altogether. How many years was that? So this is a time one. Let's take a look. I got that one figured out. Time. Blue. So with time, let's put in some numbers. My on interest was $840. My principal was 7 grand, 1,000. The rate was 3%, but I can divide it by 100, so I get 0.3 behind the decimal. I go 0.3 times 7,000. 7,000. I can go like this. 840 divided by 210. 4 years. Make sure you put that in years. Don't just put 4. 4 days, 4 months. We assume it's years usually, but I want you to label that. And if it's money, put down a dollar sign. If it's a percentage, put down a percent. Okay? Which is how are these going for you? Where are they going? What are you doing these? Yesterday? These questions. Now you get them figured out now? These questions, are they making some sense or not? Well, I'll tell you what. 7 is also a time question. How many years was that? I'm going to leave this. You guys can figure this out. Make sure you use that part of the form. And then the last one, Sally borrowed 10 grand, 5% simple interest. It doesn't have a time. So since it doesn't have a time, let's use 1 year. I remember Jonah asked me about this. Why not make it easy if they don't? That means how much will she have to pay back? You find the interest and then add that answer to the principal. Is what I'm saying. First, find the interest. Then add interest. And that's what you have to pay back. Now you got, I want you to do the last two. Remember, I'm checking on this. no debt. Okay, I have a sincere question about how to go about doing number 8. Let's do it together. We had to find, if you borrow money, you have to pay back interest plus your principal. So we got to find the interest. I'm going to put in numbers. Interest is equal to the 10 grand that you borrowed. I'm going to put a dollar sign on this one because I won't have it. My rate was 5%, so it's 0.5 minus 5. My time, I said just use 1 year. So I would use 10 grand. Okay, I get 0.05 times $500. And add the interest to the principal. So what do you pay back? Add the interest plus the principal. $500. Oh, not 500. Carried away. Money momentum. And 10,000. Which is paid back 10 grand, 500. So you guys have to do number 7. Pause for a second. Then we're going to start digging into the next thing. Big surprise. I think. Maybe not surprise. Actually, it's a pretty crappy surprise. It's math. All right. Yeah. Or no. It's all right. Nine, 10, big fat hen. You guys finish those up right now, right? And those are payback ones, just like the other one. I'll leave that while I help someone else. Okay, fair enough. I'm recording. I'm going to start with these guys. All right. It is time to look at compounding. We did something called simple interest, and it isn't that simple in real life. We can calculate simple interest easy, but the banks use something called compounding. And to explain, when a loan stretches out for more than a year, the bank will use compound interest. It's not even often, they do. This is like the bank saying, what if you paid me back everything after 1 year and then I loaned it to you again? It would be loaning you $1,100 the next year. So if you start borrowing $1,000, then you have to pay back $100 interest, right? Well, then they say, well, now your total owing is $1,100. Because that $1,100, calculate the interest on that, compounds, it piggybacks. Well, so that's what happens. And you pay interest on the interest. That's, they say accruing is the word, but building up. Don't worry about it. Because there's a table. Let's just figure it out. After a few years, it can really build up on a 5-year loan. Now, the thing is, though, you're actually making payments on the loan, so you're chipping away, and it's not growing like this, but it's easier to do the math. Do you see how if you borrowed $1,000 and you didn't pay anything on it, it would build up to over $1,600 in 4 years? Well, that's garbage. Right? Yes. Yeah. That's why you got to pay off your loans. That's why credit cards are so dangerous. You know what their rate usually is about like 20, 22%. If you put stuff on credit card and don't pay it off at the end of the month, you're paying 20% interest a year. So like over a month, it's not 20% that month. It's still high, and it grows really fast, and you get into trouble really fast. So if you're going to use a credit card, only really spend what you know you can pay the next month. After 5 years, 6 years. I might have said that. Thing is, though, you really should be making payments all the time. So to do compound interest, you work out the interest for the first year, add it on, and then calculate the interest for the next year. It's why borrow those? All we're saying is that compound interest means it's a little more expensive than just the simple interest to borrow money. So why would we need to borrow money? Then if it just gets crazy and after 5 years, $1,000 turns into $1,600 owing if you don't pay it right away. Tell me why. What do you guys think? I have an explanation, but what would make you want to borrow money? Don't have it. What? The bank won't loan you if you just don't have it. You have to have a job and qualify for a loan. They won't give you more than they think you can safely pay back. So they're not getting too much trouble. But what are we talking about, guys? Why? What's not everybody owns this, but what's a major thing that most people can't come up with the cash for? If we get two big items, one super big and one medium big. Food. Usually food you can afford, groceries on a daily. Now, you might have to borrow money if you're just down to your last dime and stuff like this. Usually the bank won't loan you money for food. That you hit up an aunt or something, mom or dad, brother, sister. I'm thinking bigger than that. Two big things that I bet you most people I know don't pay cash for. They have to take out a loan. What are housing prices like? It costs $100 to buy a house. How much? What? Give me an example of a home price in Regina. $30. No, that won't get you a home, right? How much? Have an idea? It's in the hundreds of thousands. Yeah. $300,000 home isn't crazy. That's not a mansion or anything like this. Okay, $300,000. If you make minimum wage, $15 an hour, $14 an hour actually at the end of the month, right? Right away. You make minimum wage and you work full time, you make 28,000-ish a year. That's before deductions. There's no way you're going to work, rent someplace, and then save up enough money to buy a $300,000 home. You know, you probably won't have that cash sitting. You probably also can't get approved for a $300,000 home either. But anyway, that means you need to borrow that money because it would take you 60 years to save the money otherwise, or something like that, 30 years, 25 years. Then you still need a place to live. So people generally borrow to buy big items like a house. And then a car is the other one. A brand new car, well, it depends what you buy. But a brand new car that's reasonable is anywhere between 30 and 60 grand. There, you can buy a lot more expensive. You can buy cheaper too, brand new. I actually don't buy new cars because I buy used ones. I've never paid more than 13 grams, $13,000 for a car. Why? Because I don't like taking out bank loans, and I like vehicles, but not enough that it makes me happy that if I spent 40 grand on a vehicle, I'd be happy. So I just buy an old used vehicle, drive it into the ground. My vehicles, two vehicles, one's a 2009, one's a 2010. You can save a lot of money if you don't buy new vehicles. Buy new vehicles, you'll be paying and you probably need a loan. You guys, if your first vehicle might be something that's a $2,000 or $3,000, and that's fine. Just drive it. Breaks down, you make a decision. Should I even sink any money into this or not? Otherwise, you're taking out a good sized loan. Look at this chicken business here. I think it's called Paulos Hermanos. Watch Breaking Bad? That's the chicken guy's business. Maybe it's him. Business owner, best friend. What was $1,000 to start a chicken business? Oh, this is the guy who makes the chicken, not the. in order to buy chicks, chicken food, materials to build a chicken coop. So this ain't happening in the city on a farm. A year later, the owner sells the grown chickens for $1,200. They borrowed 1,000, sells them for 12. The loan had an interest rate of 10%. It's a pretty big interest rate, but it's easy to use on a calculator. What would the owner's profit be? I equals PRT. Interest equals principal, interest rate times time in years. So put $1,000 in, 10% per year, that's 0.10 times 1. It was $100. So what does he have to pay back? The $1,000 he took out plus the interest, that's $1,100. So pays the bank back $1,100. He only made and sold the chickens for $1,200. He only made $100 that year. That's pretty crappy, isn't it? Huh. Loan interest is a cost that businesses need to be aware of so that they price their goods and services high enough to make a profit. The chicken business owner sold his chicks for less than $1,100 though. If he had done that, he wouldn't have made enough money to pay that loan back, right? Really, in his time, he didn't really make much money. $100 is peanuts over a year, you know. Just so you know, get it. Okay. However, this guy though, it sounded like he was starting from scratch, and he needed to get materials to build a chicken coop. The next year, it probably wouldn't cost him as much to run the chicken ranch, right? He wouldn't be building a new shed chicken coop and stuff like that. It would just be the food and the chicks. Who knows? Not a money-making business there. Ask your teacher. Oh, that's me. How many of the following questions you should complete? I'm thinking them all. Alex borrows $2,000 for 2 years at 5% interest. How do we do this? I'm going to go through it with you. Okay. Get off my pen. You guys do this with me. Here's what I'm doing. I'm filling this chart. What's the amount to be repaid? Well, borrowing, we're using I equals R. So the interest is what we got to figure out. On $2,000 with a 5% rate, so I'm going to put 0.05 for a year. Figure this out. 0.05 times 1. That's $100. That adds up to $2,100. Okay, that's the first year how much interest has come up. This is assuming he's not making payments. Now, that turns into I equals PRT, and this one is 2,100. 0.05. I hate this. 1. You guys see what we're doing here? Right? Then I put that into the calculator. 21, because it's being charged interest on the interest added in. $105. He owes more interest the next year. So that's 205 added again. That's what he owes. He owes an extra $205 with that compound. That's the amount. And I could do the subtraction in my head. If you want to use a calculator, go ahead. But I subtract off the original 2. Yeah. I color coded it so you can see one calculation from the other. You don't need to use a different pencil or pen. This is the same kind of stuff. Now take a look. Number 2, very same kind of thing. Number 3, more, but it's the same kind of thing. Number 4, same kind of thing. Number 5 doesn't exist. We'll talk about that. Why is that? So do all of these questions. That's up to 17. Okay. 4 questions at 17. I did the first one. You guys good with that?